The movie begins with our protagonist, Charlie Heller, who is seen working on restoring an antique plane. Shortly after, his wife, Sarah, appears and asks him to make her a cup of coffee as she's about to leave. He agrees, and we learn that Sarah is flying to London for a 5-day business trip. She invites Charlie to join her, but he refuses due to work commitments, assuring her that he will come along next time. After Sarah departs, Charlie heads off to work and soon arrives at the CIA headquarters, where he works as a cryptographer. As he makes his way to his office, we see the CIA's advanced security systems, including cutting-edge surveillance cameras that can detect the items employees are carrying. Once in his office, Charlie establishes contact with Inquilin, an anonymous source who has been providing valuable intelligence for the past 5 years. Charlie has no idea who this person is, but he suspects they're a middle-aged man living in Istanbul, which Inquilin quickly dismisses. Inquilin then sends over some classified material, but instructs Charlie to only open it when he's completely alone. While trying to decrypt the file, Charlie receives a call from Sarah, who tells him she has arrived in London. She tries to continue the conversation, but Charlie is focused on his work and ends the call. After some time, Charlie finally manages to decrypt the information sent by Inquilin. It turns out to be several classified files exposing that his boss, Alex Moore, has been disguising politically motivated drone strikes as terrorist bombings. Charlie is deeply disturbed by the revelation and confides in a colleague, admitting that he accessed files he wasn't supposed to and discovered something disturbing. However, his colleague warns him to stay quiet, cautioning that someone might be listening. Upon returning home, Charlie tries to call his wife, but she doesn't answer. The next morning, when he arrives at the office, he finds Moore snooping around his workspace, which immediately puts him on edge. Moore then informs him there's news and leads him to the office of CIA Director Samantha. Samantha makes a shocking revelation that a terrorist attack has occurred at a London hotel. To Charlie's horror, it turns out Sarah had been staying at that very hotel and was assassinated amidst the chaos. Upon hearing the news, Charlie is left stunned and refuses to accept that his wife is truly gone. But when Samantha shows him footage of Sarah being subdued by the terrorists, it feels as if his entire world comes crashing down. In the following days, Charlie is consumed by grief and spends all his time mourning and pretending to hold it together. However, after some time, he decides he's had enough and begins investigating the attack and those responsible. He then meets with Moore and a CIA supervisor, Caleb, to share his findings and uncovers the identities of the 4 terrorists involved: Mishka Blažić, Elish, Gretchen Frank, and Horst Schiller, the leader and the one who shot Sarah. During their attempted escape from the hotel, the terrorists were cornered by London police, which led them to start taking hostages. Surveillance footage further reveals that Sarah had stepped in to defend another woman, which led to her death. Through his investigation, Charlie has managed to trace Gretchen Frank to Paris and recommends that they should immediately capture her. Upon hearing this, Moore and Caleb show no signs of surprise. As it turns out, they were already aware of these killers. Moore explains that the terrorist network has nothing to do with Sarah personally, but rather with matters of US sovereignty and national security. They insist on acting cautiously and promise Charlie that justice will be served for Sarah. However, when Charlie expresses distrust in them, they begin to doubt his mental stability as a result of his wife's death and arrange for him to see a psychiatrist. However, Charlie refuses to stay idle, and days later, he confronts Moore and Caleb once again. This time, he admits that he's aware of the bombings they orchestrated in various parts of the world that claimed the lives of countless innocent people. Moore accuses him of lying, but Charlie stands his ground and threatens to expose the truth to the CIA director or even the media. He warns them that he has a dead man's switch in place, and unless he enters a code every 5 hours, all the evidence will be automatically sent to the press. Upon hearing this, the 2 corrupt officers finally agree to negotiate, so Charlie reveals that he wants CIA training so he can find all those terrorists and kill them for revenge. Moore believes it's a joke and comments that he can't even fight a 90-year-old woman, but Charlie is adamant in his condition and refuses to change his mind. Later, Moore and Caleb discuss this in private, wondering if Charlie is just bluffing with them about the dead man's switch. Regardless, they decide to give him the training he desires in the meantime and then kill him once they discover the classified files. Following this, Charlie is enrolled at the CIA training center, where Colonel Robert Henderson takes charge of instructing him. While Charlie immerses himself in the rigorous training, Moore and his agents turn his office upside down in a desperate search for the device. Their hunt extends to Charlie's home and a bar he used to frequent, but they find nothing. Meanwhile, Charlie struggles immensely with the training, where he's unable to aim the gun accurately and terrified to pull the trigger. One evening, Henderson tells Charlie that he is not a killer and never will be. He even hands him a gun to fire, but Charlie is paralyzed and unable to pull the trigger. Charlie claims that he will be able to shoot when the time comes, but Henderson doesn't think so. He informs Charlie that he won't be able to stand up to trained terrorists and encourages him to give up before it is too late. Else Elsewhere, the CIA team searches everywhere for Charlie's device, but finds none. However, Moore accidentally discovers a bug planted by Charlie in his office. This makes him realize Charlie has been listening to everything, and he was just bluffing about the dead man's switch. With this, Moore immediately calls Henderson and asks him to finish Charlie. However, when Henderson reaches his room, the cryptographer is long gone. We then see Charlie aboard a flight, where he recalls the moment his wife surprised him with an old plane as a birthday gift. It wasn't functional, but Charlie was confident he could fix it. He had planned to surprise Sarah with a fully restored plane when she returned from her trip, but tragically, that never happened. In the present, Charlie arrives in Paris, where he begins keeping an eye on Gretchen Frank, one of the terrorists. One evening, while she is out, he breaks into her apartment and discovers that Gretchen has an appointment at a clinic. He also finds a gun, which he decides to take for himself. Not long after, Gretchen unexpectedly returns, so Charlie hides on the stairs above and prepares to shoot the woman. However, when the time comes, he becomes paralyzed and unable to pull the trigger. The next day, a more determined Charlie sneaks into the clinic where Gretchen has arrived for a checkup. While the doctors briefly leave the room, Charlie enters and locks Gretchen inside a hyperbaric chamber filled with pollen. She begins having trouble breathing and demands to know what he wants, so Charlie asks her for the whereabouts of their leader, Horst Schiller. She claims not to know, but he doesn't believe her. Gretchen eventually tries to say something, but the pollen begins to suffocate her, so Charlie releases her from the chamber. However, as soon as she's free, Gretchen fights with Charlie and manages to run away from the clinic. She reaches the street where Charlie raises his gun to shoot her, but before he can fire, an incoming vehicle suddenly slams into Gretchen, leading to her instant death. This stuns Charlie, and he stealthily grabs her phone and flees before anyone notices. Following this, Charlie heads to Marseille, where he plans to stay low for a while. In the meantime, the CIA also finds out about Gretchen's death, and Samantha questions Moore, pressing him to reveal if he knows anything. He insists his agents aren't involved, and claims it was probably Gretchen's own people who killed her, but Samantha remains suspicious of him. Returning to Charlie, he is haunted by memories of his late wife, so he heads to a nightclub to relax. There, he ends up indulging in drugs and alcohol, which causes him to hallucinate. However, things take a bizarre turn when he notices Henderson among the crowd. The scared Charlie immediately rushes to the bathroom, but can't find any escape route. With no other option, he returns to the bar and sits down with Henderson. Surprisingly, Henderson seems calm and tells Charlie that he tracked him using Gretchen's phone, warning him he shouldn't make such careless mistakes. He then urges Charlie to leave everything behind and go home, insisting it's not too late, but Charlie refuses, saying he has no one left to return to. Just then, he pulls out his phone to reveal a timer, and in a shocking turn of events, a bomb explodes in the bathroom. The blast causes chaos in the club, which Charlie takes advantage of to escape from Henderson. Following this, Charlie contacts his anonymous ally, Inquilin, and asks if the person is really in Istanbul because he needs help. This time, Inquilin confirms and arranges for Charlie to travel to Turkey. He soon arrives at a restaurant arranged by Inquilin and sends a text to the mysterious contact. When Charlie notices a man in the distance checking his phone, he assumes it is his friend. He's about to approach the man, but a woman stops him and reveals that she is Inquilin. Later, the woman introduces herself as Davies and reveals that her husband was a KGB officer and the original Inquilin, who passed away 6 years ago. It turns out he taught her everything he knew, including how to encrypt data, navigate deep systems, and most importantly, survive. After he died, Davies maintained communication with Charlie's department, just in case she ever needed a favor someday. Next, Davies takes Charlie to her hidden hideout on the outskirts of the city, where she's been living in secrecy for the past 3 years. Charlie opens up about the terrorist attack and his wife's death, but to his surprise, Davies already knows everything and agrees to help. Charlie then explains Schiller's network, describing them as arms smugglers who supply mercenaries for Moore's covert operations. Elish handles weapon procurement, but he's recently become extremely paranoid. Davies suggests that she will try contacting him by posing as a potential buyer. Then there's Mishka Blažić, the group's weakest link, who is constantly posting travel photos online and exposing his location. The two then stalk Blažić's girlfriend and learn that the couple is in Madrid, so Charlie decides to head there. Meanwhile, Samantha is becoming increasingly suspicious of Moore and requests that he stop conducting covert missions without her permission. She also believes he's hiding something and asks him to be honest about his activities, but Moore doesn't reveal anything. Later, Samantha meets with her assistant, who shows her footage revealing that Henderson is in Spain. She learns that it was Moore who sent him and decides to send one of her own agents as well. In the meantime, Charlie arrives at a hotel in Madrid where Blažić is staying and discovers that the criminal often swims alone at the rooftop pool late at night. Davies, who is monitoring everything remotely, advises him to take the shot from the balcony, but Charlie refuses since he isn't good at shooting. At the bar, he notices a man staring at him a little too intently and soon figures out he's a CIA agent sent by Samantha. Davies then spots Henderson in the same hotel and warns Charlie to abandon the mission for now, but our hero chooses to proceed anyway and confronts Blazich while he's swimming. Charlie then asks him about Schiller's whereabouts, but Blazich thinks it's some kind of joke and refuses to answer. Charlie then reveals who he is and tells him that he has rigged the pool with a device to decompress the glass, causing it to shatter if he turns it on. This frightens Blazich, who claims he has no idea about Schiller, who has disappeared recently. Frustrated, Charlie activates the device, and the pool begins to crack apart, plunging Blazich to his death and causing mass panic among the guests below. Following this, Charlie begins to run away, while Henderson and another agent are also in pursuit. Davies, who has hacked into hotel cameras, guides Charlie on which route to take to avoid them. At one point, Henderson clashes with the other agent, and the two start fighting. The other agent is fatally shot, while Henderson is also badly injured. Charlie notices everything, and although tempted to help Henderson, he ends up fleeing from there to escape the capture. The next day, Caleb and his agents review the hotel footage and spot an earpiece in Charlie's ear, revealing he's been communicating with someone. They examine Charlie's encrypted chat and discover he's been in contact with someone named Inquiline. After further investigation, they find out that the man known as Inquiline is actually dead, leading them to conclude that his wife must now be operating in his place. Days later, while Charlie and Davies are lying together to comfort one another, they are startled by noises outside. They check the cameras and are shocked to see a group of agents approaching the door. The two immediately format the computers and begin escaping through the back door. When they reach the highway, they believe they have lost their pursuers, but a hail of bullets strikes their car. Charlie manages to get lucky and survive, but unfortunately, Davies is brutally shot. After finally escaping from the agents, Charlie arrives at a parking lot where he's devastated to discover that Davies has died. He gently bids her farewell and spends the next few days tormented by memories of Sarah and Davies' deaths. Then, one day, he receives a message from Elish on Inquiline's phone, revealing that she had been posing as a buyer to obtain weapons. Following this, Charlie heads to Romania to meet him, and when Elish arrives at the designated spot, he finds a phone and a box waiting for him. The phone rings, and Elish answers to learn that money for the weapons has been left inside the box. But when Elish opens it, he's shocked to find explosives instead. Charlie then appears and warns that if Elish moves or tries to close the box, the bomb will detonate. He introduces himself as the husband of the woman who was shot in London and promises to deactivate the bomb if Elish reveals Schiller's location. At first, Elish denies knowing anything, but under pressure, he eventually confesses that Schiller is operating from a ship in the Baltic Sea. He also hands over his phone, which holds the contact details of Schiller's men. After getting the information he wanted, Charlie takes the phone and turns to walk away without disabling the bomb as he had promised. A few tense seconds pass before the box finally detonates, killing Elish instantly in a fiery explosion. Following this, Charlie arrives at a port in the Russian region of Primorsk, where he begins investigating Schiller's ship and the smuggling operation. He secretly observes Schiller's men unloading contraband and clicks pictures of their boat. One morning, he returns to the port and asks a local Russian man if he has seen the smugglers from the day before, but the man becomes agitated and says something in Russian, which Charlie doesn't understand. Before he can make sense of it, someone sneaks up behind him and knocks him out cold. In the next scene, Charlie wakes up and is shocked to find himself surrounded by several goons who take him to Schiller, the man he's been desperately hunting. Schiller remains calm and asks who sent him, but Charlie responds that he's acting alone and is seeking vengeance for his wife's death. Schiller then apologizes for what happened to Sarah and claims that it was a necessary sacrifice to escape the police. When Charlie finds that response pathetic, Schiller reminds him that he tortured and killed several of his associates just to get here, so perhaps they aren't so different. Following this, Schiller hands Charlie a loaded gun and instructs him to shoot him if he truly desires vengeance. Charlie points the gun at him, but is paralyzed for a brief moment and unable to act. However, as soon as he drops the gun, the ship abruptly changes direction. Charlie then shockingly reveals that he hijacked the ship and they're now heading toward Finland. Schiller assumes it's a bluff, claiming the ship is impenetrable because the system was built by the CIA. However, Charlie explains that he had previously worked on the ship's encryption system. By using the contact numbers of Schiller's men, whose phones were connected to the ship's internal network, he was able to access a hidden backdoor and quietly take control of the navigation system. Upon hearing this, Schiller is shocked, but before he can react, react, the Finnish police and Interpol surround the vessel and soon arrest all of the terrorists. In the next scene, Samantha holds a press conference where she publicly announces that some senior members of the CIA have been guilty of breaching the morals and laws of the agency. At the same time, Moore and Caleb are arrested for carrying out unauthorized actions on foreign soil. Samantha then reveals that the whistleblower, who is in fact Charlie, is still alive and now cooperating with the agency. Later, we see Charlie with Henderson, who has survived the attack at the hotel. The cryptographer thanks him for his teachings, though the colonel tells him that what he did can't be taught. Charlie then visits Sarah's grave and returns home, where he finishes repairing his old plane. The movie ends as the plane takes off, and Charlie finally embraces a new beginning by letting go of the burden of losing his wife.